1997.
Right.
This is Joe Todd, and interviewed with Mr. Oliver Knabe in Woodward, Oklahoma.
Right.
So where were you born?
Lookout, Oklahoma.
And when's your birthday?
February the 11th, 1915.
19. Where is Lookout?
It's about 18 miles northwest of Freedom. It's not there no more.
And who is your father?
Chris Knabe.
And your mother?
Nora
And what was her maiden name?
Woodard.
W-O-D-A-R-D?
Yes.
Okay. And where were they from?
My dad was from Iowa, I think, and my mother, I think, came from Kingman, Kansas. I'm not positive on that. That's a little before my time, too.
When they come down to Oklahoma?
Oh, man, that... early 1900s.
Did they come down to Homestead or?
My mother homesteaded, my dad did.
And was your father a farmer?
Yeah. He was a farmer and carpenter.
Farmer and carpenter. As a small boy, what chores did you do in the farm?
All general farm work, milked cows, fed cattle, farmed spring crop, cold room corn and so forth like that.
Did you know your grandparents?
Did I know?
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandparents on the mother's side was A.M. Woodard. I can't remember what his wife's first name was. And my grandparents on my dad's side was John Knabe, but I can't remember what his wife's name was.
Either one of your grandfathers in the Civil War?
I don't think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think my grandfather on my dad's side came from Europe in early days when he was 17 years old.
From Germany?
Yeah.
You said that you pulled broom corn. How do you pull broom corn? What?
Use both ends. You just get a hold of it and rip the head out just like that.
This is big broom corn country back then, wasn't it?
Yes, there's lots of broom corn. In them days, we didn't have combines and tractors and such as that. We had horses and headers, binders, that's just take care of the wheat and feed and so forth.
How many men on a harvest crew in those days?
Well, there was about 2, 4, 5, 7, about 7 to 10, I imagine.
And of course, it's all horse drawn. What different types of equipment were used on wheat harvest?
On harvest, it was mostly headers, and then they would stack it and thrash it with old separators, thrashing machine.
Now,
Most of them was run with a steam engine.
Now, I've heard of the header and the header barge.
A header and a header barge. The header cut the wheat and elevated it into the header barge. Took 2 people to run the header barge. 1 man run the header. And usually they had 2 header barges for each header. And they had two stackers, sometimes 3 or 4. Some of them be cleaning up around the stack where the loose hay was falling off and throwing them on the stack.
Now, I've heard the wheat had to go through a sweat. Why did it have to go through that sweat before it was threshed? What was the reason?
Never heard of that in my life.
You didn't?
No, sir. I've heard of some of it, if it was damp, it would go through a sweat, but it wasn't necessary. The fact is, they didn't want to do it through a sweat.
And how long before the wheat was stacked until it was threshed?
Oh, sometimes it depends on when the thrash machine got there. Sometimes it'd be maybe a week, and sometimes it'd be 2 months. After it got in the stack, they didn't worry too much about it then. They usually had a stack so that the water wouldn't soak into stacks and such as that.
Now, I've seen photographs that show the thrasher with a big long belt to the steam engine.
That was a steam engine on it, most generally. It was an old steam engine motor, and this big belt runs to the separator. That's what it tells you, a separator or a thrasher.
Why was the belt so long? Why was the steam engine so far away?
Well, now you're asking questions that I can't answer because I suppose is get that there engine out away from the wheat so it wouldn't set fire to it or something. I wouldn't know what else it'd be, but it did have an awful long belt, or maybe it's just to make it line up better or something. It was, I suppose, for a purpose.
How big was the town of Lookout?
Oh, there was a grocery store and a post office.
That was it?
That's about it.
Who ran
Finally got to be a filling station there.
Who ran the post office?
Well, I believe it was John Newkirk. Boy, I can't tell you in the early days who was there before John Newkirk, but John Newkirk came there when I was a kid and took over. And then they moved the town of Lookout and moved it mile west, 3 mile north and a half west, and Doty's around it then.
Why did they move the town?
John Newkirk sold out.
And did the town just disappear then when it was moved, or did it?
Oh, it run for years after that, but just like I said, all it was a post office, grocery store, and finally got a gas station, and that was about all the town was there.
Did you go to school there at Lookout?
No, I went to a country school by the name of Enterprise. And I went there we sold the farm, and then we moved on to another farm 2 miles west and a mile south of where we did live, and I went to the school at Day Creek.
Were these both one-room schools?
Yes.
Could you tell me how one teacher handles all the grades in one room?
Very simple. They was educated. They was taught to handle. They had their classes, certain time. They'd have the primary, first grade, second grade, third grade, so on up. And they didn't put in a lot of extra time like they do in high school, I suppose, now, or in grade schools. But usually it's a young teacher that handled all that too. Most generally it's just getting out of college or something like that.
So when they were teaching the primary or whatever grade, what were the other grades doing while they were teaching?
They were studying their lessons.
What, did you go through high school?
No, I just went through the 8th grade. I really didn't graduate from the 8th grade. I just went into it.
After school, what'd you do?
Went home and done chores, work.
How did the Depression affect the farm?
It affected us badly because we lost our farm in the Depression.
You did. What happened?
Well, the mortgage company took it.
How many farmers around here lost their farms?
I couldn't really tell you that, but there was quite a bunch of them.
Did your family ever consider going to California?
No. They just rented another farm instead of owning one. They rented one.
About the dust storms. How bad were they around here?
Rough, real rough. I seen one evening when a dust storm come in and it just turned dark, just like it's night.
And there was one I've heard called Black Sunday.
Yeah, that's it.
What did that storm look like when it was coming in?
It just looked like a big old cloud rolling in. A big old black looking cloud.
How dark did it get?
Huh?
How dark did it get during that storm?
It got dark.
How long do those dust storms last?
Oh, I don't know as I could really tell you exactly how long they last. I suppose some of them lasted a day and some of them 2 days, 3 days. But back in them days, there's a drought on, and it didn't take much wind to stir that dirt in the air. It just, sometimes wind would settle at night, and the dead gum dust would settle with it. And it'd be dust all over everything.
Even in the house?
In the house, and outside the house, and everywhere.
Could you keep that dust out of the house?
I wouldn't know how you do it.
So, did the drought cause the dust storms, or?
Yes, the drought caused the dust storms, because out here in western Kansas, I had some uncles that lived out there, and they farmed wheat. They had good wheat crop, and the drought hit it. It just dried it up, and there was nothing to hold the dirt or anything else. So the drought really caused the dust storms. And people farmed too dadgum much too.
They did.
Yeah, every piece of ground that they could farm, they farmed it.
So, what broke the dust storms?
What?
What ended the dust storms? What broke them?
Rain. About the only thing I could say. And then the government stepped in and reseeded grass and such as that. Places.
Do you do any work for the CCC or WPA?
I was in the Ccc camp for 6 months. And 1 month of that was down here at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, in the Wichita Mountains. 5 months was in Colorado.
What'd you do at Fort Sill?
Oh, we built dams and such as that.
Remember the number of the camp down there?
812.
812.
It's all gone now. I went back down there to see.
Now, how were those camps organized?
Oh, just kind of like army camps. They had barracks and such as that. Now in Colorado, we had tents to live in.
What part of Colorado?
It was between Montrose and Delta, back up in the forest country. I couldn't tell you just how far or which direction, but I was turning around most of the time I was out there.
And what'd you do out there?
We worked in the timber there, and we built. We started out was cutting pine trees that had bugs in them, was killing the trees, and we cut them and pile them up and burn them, burn the bark off from them, and then we'd put the fire out and let the mills come and get the trees for timber or for lumber. And then we started building a dadgum fence between the sheep range and the cattle range. That's what we was doing when we left there.
And what number was the camp out there?
Still 812.
Still 812. And you were in the CCC 6 months? What was your salary in the CCC camps? What money were you paying?
$5 a month. Room and board. But the government sent $25 home to your parents for them to live on too while you was in there.
Yeah.
So really, it's about $30 a month if you include that.
What was the local townspeople? What was their attitude toward the CCC boys?
Really, some towns is pretty good. Some they didn't care for them at all. Is this for public?
There, you shut it off.
Well, some of these towns thought they was going to get their young girls pregnant and such as that, and they didn't care for the CC camp. And other towns where they's out doing timber work and such as that, why improving the country and so forth, why they kind of liked it. So. you can understand why they didn't like it and why they did.
Oh, yeah. Now, I'm trying to get some information of how, were you drafted in the CCC? Did you join the CCC?
He
Or
joined,
You joined?
yes, volunteer.
Volunteer.
But there was no work or nothing else out where you could get a job. 17, 18 years old, you couldn't hardly pay for a job and get one.
So did they help the family get by then?
Yes.
And when did you join the CCCs?
Man, I couldn't tell you. Let's see, I was about 34, I believe it was.
And who was over the camp? Who was in charge of it?
They had Army officers over just like they would in the Army. But, they had different, well, now in Colorado where we was out there building fence and cutting trees to kill the bugs, the Forestry Service was over that. And then they had these ranchers out there when we was building this fence. They kind of overseen the fence building such as that. But down here in Fort Sill, well, they had Army officers in charge of that there.
And what rank was the commander? Do you remember?
Captain, I think it was.
Captain? And how many Army officers were over the camp?
Well, I really couldn't tell you. I'd say 3. I think a captain, 2 lieutenants. But they might have been a colonel or 2 over them too.
And how many men were in 812?
100. Around 150. I couldn't tell you exactly.
Well, could you just tell me just what your average day was in 812? You know, from the time you got up, you know, eat breakfast, and what kind of work you did?
Well, time you got up, you ate breakfast, you're done your toiletries and so forth, and breakfast. Then about 8 o'clock you'd fall out to go to work on the dam, and usually they'd bring lunch out to you on the job. And then 5 o'clock you'd quit and you'd come in and take a bath, and the rest of the day was more or less your own, whatever you want to do.
So were you free to go into town or whatever at that time?
Yes, if you get a pass.
After the CCC camp, what did you do?
Well, I kind of loafed around. I went to work for a man up in Kansas. No, I didn't. I went to work for my uncle. I worked for him for a few years. Then I headed for California, and I got a job on a ranch out there, and I worked there a year. Turned around and come back to Oklahoma and went to work for a man in Kansas and worked there 8 years, and then the Army got a hold of me.
In California, you ever come in contact with any of the Okies out there in California?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was lots of them out there.
How were they treated?
Well, kind of like the Mexicans around here, or the colored people. You know how that is.
Yeah. I've heard they live in the labor camps out there.
They had camps set up. I guess you would call them labor camps. We call them cotton camps or whatever like that. But these big ranchers just made these camps for their help to live in. Usually a one-room building. And that'd keep the weather off of them, you know. And I've seen whole families living there from 6 to 8 people
Did you live in one of those camps?
for a while.
Did they provide, like, you know, the toilets and running water and all that? Was that provided for them?
Yeah.
What about the food in those camps?
You had to furnish your own food.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of work did you do on the ranch out there?
Out there on the ranch where I worked, is mostly farm work, is haying and irrigating and such as that.
And what part?
Building levees for to irrigate with. That was out of Bakersfield.
Bakersfield.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was a large group of Okies out there at Bakersfield, I understand.
Quite a
Right.
few of them.
Yep.
Up around Fresno, there's a bunch of them.
How'd you go to California?
I and one of my cousins went out there in a car.
And you stayed a year and you came back here?
Mhm.
And what year did you go to California?
It was in the 30s somewhere.
Of course,
Right about, not too long after I got out of the CC camp. I imagine about 35, 34.
of course, you've seen the movie The Grapes of Wrath. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Is that accurate or is it?
Well, I'll tell you, some of it is. Just put it that way. And I think they put a lot of it in there to sell a picture too.
So, you get drafted?
Yeah,
What year?
41,
What month?
October,
October.
October 1st, 1941.
Where'd you go for your basic training?
I went to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas for a week, and then they sent me down to Fort Sill for my basic training. After I got my basic training, I went to Phoenix, Arizona. From Phoenix, I went to Tucson. Then they shipped us back to Fort near Camp Funston, Kansas. We got motorized. Now, when I was in Fort Sill, we was in horse-drawn artillery.
You were.
Yeah.
Tell me about your basic training there at Fort Sill.
Well, we just had horses pulled cannons and caissons and such as that.
What type of cannon did you have?
75 millimeters.
That the old French 75?
Yeah. And 2 wheels on it. Long trail on it.
What type of training did you have in basic?
Artillery training and infantry training too. We had some infantry training, but artillery didn't take much infantry training.
So you were in the artillery.
Yeah.
What unit were you a member of?
16th Field Artillery, I believe it was.
What? That was the same time the 45th was at Fort Sill, wasn't it? Weren't they down there?
No, I don't think, they might have been, but there's a different camp. Now, you see, they had the old Fort Sill, and then they built a new camp there. They had the old fort that was made out of brick and such as that, and they built this new camp for World War II, for recruits come in and take basic trainings, and they had wooden barracks and such stuff as that then.
Is that where you stayed?
In the wooden barracks, but we used the horses from the old army post there for our basic training.
Did you switch? When did you switch from horse-drawn to motorized?
I can't tell you exact year. Must have been about latter part of 42 or the early part of 43.
And what did they do with the horses when they motorized?
They was out there in Arizona at the time, and someone, so we heard, said that they shipped them to Nevada and put them on a reservation up there. And as far as I don't know if that's true or not.
And what kind of vehicles did you get?
We got half tracks and self-propelled guns,
What size guns?
trucks, 155s.
Or 155? Is that what they call a long tom?
No, these was carried on self-propelled equipment. There wasn't too long a barrel on them.
And when you travel like from Fort Sill to Phoenix and Tucson, do you travel by trip train?
Yes.
How's travel on a trip train? How was that?
Oh, I can't say that it was too bad. The fact is, for a country boy that never seen no country, it's pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what were you doing on Pearl Harbor Day?
I was down in Fort Sill, Oklahoma in the Army.
What was your,
I can't tell exactly what they're doing, but I think when we heard the racket or the noise of it, I got the word that they bombed Pearl Harbor. I think it was late in the evening. We was practically getting ready for bed or something like that. But as far as I know, I can't tell you exactly what I was doing.
you remember your reaction, what you were thinking?
Yeah, I can. I thought, there goes my furlough.
Mm-hmm.
I was coming up for a furlough for Christmas time. And when they bombed Pearl Harbor, they canceled all the furloughs.
Could you tell me the difference in, I guess, a crew from the French 75 to the 155?
Oh, as far as I know, in the French 75, you had horses, you had 3 men on horses, you had the caisson, you had 3 men on the horses on the caisson. I believe there was three men on the dadgum rode the caisson to operate the gun on the French 75. And these self-propelled outfits, why, they didn't have that there unless it's pulled by a truck. Now, if it's pulled by a truck, they had the truck driver and gun crew and ammunition crew and such as that. I'd say there's about the same amount of men on one of them there truck pulled outfits as well as a 175.
Yeah.
I mean the 75 millimeter horse-drawn. On the horse-drawn cannons, they had 6 head of horses on each gun. Then they had the caisson and the shell wagon, in case you don't know what the caisson is. It just hauled the ammunition in it. They had 6 head of horses on it. And the driver on these horses rode the left-hand horse all the time, and there was one on each team. Now they had them 2 abreast, if you know what that means. And there was 3 riders on them. They all rode the left-hand horse. They had the lead from a swing and wheel team, what they call them.
What's that? Swing and wheel team?
The lead, the swing, and the wheel team.
Okay, I see.
You see, they had the wheel team right next to the gun.
Mm-hmm.
And then the swing is in the middle, and then the lead team is in front. And I just happened to be lucky enough to get this lead team.
So what was your duty on the lead team? What did you do?
That was to keep them going and kind of lead the other 2 teams and the gun to where they're supposed to go to and so forth.
Now, when you rode the horses, is it your job to take care of the horses too?
Uh-huh. Yeah, you had to take care of the horses as to ride them. And you had to take care of your harness, your saddles and all that stuff. You had to keep them well taken care of too.
Now, whenever you travel, on maneuvers, I guess you rode the horses out on maneuvers and all
Yes.
that. So you just carried everything with you there.
Yeah, you put a full field pack on the horse. I was on the right-hand horse, you put that. And I guess you just rode them out in the field on maneuvers.
So when did you go overseas?
Well, I can't tell you the exact day. I was there about a year and 2 or 3 months.
What, overseas?
Yeah.
Where'd you leave from?
New Jersey.
New Jersey? That Hoboken?
No. Is it Camp Kilmer?
It sounds familiar.
I think it's Camp Kilmer, New Jersey.
What ship did you travel on?
St. Mary's,
St. Mary? How big was it?
the big one of the biggest.
Was it, is that St. Mary or Queen Mary?
Queen Mary.
Queen Mary.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest ships they had.
Yeah, is that the one that's in California now?
It probably is.
Yeah.
It was Queen Mary out there. That's probably the same one.
Where did
It
you?
belonged to the English.
Yeah. Where did you stay in the ship?
About the middle deck. I don't know how many decks they had, but there were several of them on there.
Did you stay in a cabin?
Well, just a big old room with a whole bunch of people in it.
What, did you have a bunk or what?
Yeah, bunk.
Where'd you take your meals on the ship?
They had a dining room, dining hall. Each deck would go separate. They'd have one deck go down and eat, and then the next one, and the next one, and so forth. I'm not sure, but someone said there was 12,000 soldiers on that ship or something like that.
Did you have pretty much free reign of the ship wherever you wanted to go?
Most generally. If they thought they sighted anything or anything like that, this submarine or enemy plane or anything like that, you usually blow the horn, you go back to your bunk. Outside of that, well, you could go out on deck or mess around and go to a different deck and play poker, shoot dice, or whatever you want to.
What about the big ballrooms? What they use those for?
I never seen one of them on that ship. I never did get in one of them. I think they just put bunks in them and made troop space for them.
Did you pass Statue of Liberty going out?
Yeah,
Did you see it?
yeah.
What'd you think of
Well, I thought it was pretty nice coming back. Going out wasn't so good.
it? So where'd you land in Europe?
We landed at Glasgow, Scotland. And we went down through Scotland on the troop train into Southampton, England. And from there they loaded up on a boat, and that was a LST. We went across the channels and landed in France. I seen the Eiffel Tower too, but I seen it at about 45 mile an hour, 55 mile an hour, something like that, went right under.
Were you there for D-Day? Was that after D-Day?
That was after D-Day, yes.
So, where'd you go to the front lines?
When?
Yeah, or where?
Well, we went to the front lines is in northern France, I believe it was, and of course we got up into Luxembourg and Belgium. That's where we really got into the front lines, where we seen the Germans.
Were you there for the Bulge?
I was. The fact is, I run them Germans all over Belgium. They never caught me.
What'd you do?
Huh?
What'd you do?
I outrun them.
Outrun them
Yeah, I outrun them.
with your 155?
No, I was in the infantry then.
You were.
Yeah.
When'd they put you in the infantry?
Why did they? I guess it's because I wasn't worth a damn nothing else. I can't. They'd change around wherever they needed a man. That's where you went. If they had somebody, and turn that thing off again. I'll tell you just what the colonel said to us there when they transferred us over to the infantry. He says the only reason that a person gets transferred into this infantry is because he's a fuck up. And so that's why they transferred us, I guess. But there was a bunch of us transferred out of the artillery into the infantry. And I got me a 30 caliber machine gun, light machine gun.
Is that water cooler job?
No, air cooled.
Air cooler?
It was light, 30. And that's what I was doing over there before I got hit at Bastogne.
Where were you when the Bulge broke out?
We was past Bastogne. We was up there on the dadgam line.
Is that the Siegfried line?
No, it's just the line is set up. It's just pretty close to Siegfried line. And they had one division up there, the 82nd, I think it was, infantry, and they had it scattered over 90 miles. And when the Germans started that push, we was in the 9th Armored Division, so they rushed us up there to reinforce them. And we got there 12 hours too late because they'd done broke through the 82nd when we got there. So we set up lines right there and we tried to hold them there. And the dadgum 101 Airborne and some more of them was sent up there to reinforce us, and they got there 12 hours too late. So they set up their lines at Bastogne, and when they broke through our lines, we just retreated back to Bastogne. And that's where they got around us so we couldn't go no further.
When did you first realize the Bulge was going on? What was your reaction?
I don't know. I just thought that the fighting was starting good and heavy because we didn't realize the Bulge was going on until after they broke through the first line of defense.
Where were you? Were you up around the St. Vith or up in that area?
No, we was, if you know where Huswaller and Muleswaller and such towns that was.
Yeah, I know where Bastogne and St. Vith and Elsenborn and...
Well, we was past Bastogne.
What, going towards Germany?
Going toward Germany. A bunch of them little towns in there, there's Huswaller and Muleswaller and such as that. And we got stopped before we got into Bastogne. There's a little town there, Huswaller, I believe it was. And we started setting up lines there. We got some reinforcement in there. And the Germans come along and they just rolled up on top of the mountain. That was a mountainous country in there where that little town was. We was down the valley. They just rolled up to their 88 guns and started picking up our equipment, knocking hell at everything. And so this colonel was in charge. He told us, he said, well, man, he said, we're going back to Bastogne. He said, everybody can get a ride, well, load up, and then mechanics going to have to walk. So I was just lucky I found some of them boys that was in the artillery with, and they had one in their 155 guns they was driving, so I got on it and rode it back to Bastogne.
So tell me about Bastogne. What was it like there being surrounded?
The most I can remember, it was cold as hell. There was a lot of fighting, but it was cold. You get out there in them foxholes, and you wrap up in 2 or 3 blankets, your overcoat, and everything else you get on to you, and still freeze.
So what'd you do there in Bastogne?
We just sat there in that circle and foxholes and so forth, and that's where we stayed till they come in and rescued us.
No, were you in the town itself, or were you outside the town?
We had lines set up just on the outside of town, and most of us in town.
Yeah.
But usually the lines are set up right at the edge of town. And, that's big sheriffs was out there in foxholes or something like that, you know.
And were you north or south of Bastogne, or what?
Boy, I can't tell you. I don't know what direction the woods was out there.
And how long were you there in Bastogne?
I believe it was 3 days.
Did you know that the Third Army was coming to rescue you? Did you have any?
Not till they got there. But I did know that we wasn't giving up.
I've been trying to find out. You know, I've heard that General McAuliffe told the Germans nuts when they asked him to surrender. What did he really say?
He said nuts.
Is that what he really said?
That's what he said.
Okay, I've heard some people
They
say
asked him to surrender and he said nuts. So that's...
So you were at Bastogne 3 days?
Yeah, about somewhere's in there. We was there before the Germans got to it. When we come back in there, the dadgam general told us, he said, well, men, he said, we're stopping here. He said, we're going to hold this place. And that's what was done.
Tell me about the Battle of Bastogne. How bad was it?
Pretty dadgum bad. And our 9th Armored Division, out of 5 companies, we had about enough for 3-4 squads after we got out of there. The 9th Armored Division was supposed to be annihilated altogether. The Germans put out the word that the 9th Armored Division was annihilated and done away with them. Well, for moral effects, the dadgum United States went in there and they sent in replacements to rebuild the 9th Armored Division. I said that'd have a big moral effect on the Germans when they found out that the 9th Armored Division wasn't annihilated. So they just rebuilt the 9th Armored Division and they called it the Phantom Division from then on. So.
And when the Third Army broke through, what'd you do when you realized that you'd been rescued?
Probably hollered, I don't know. That's about all I knew what to do.
You ever see Patton when he came through?
Never seen him. I never did meet the man. I heard a lot about him, but I never did meet him.
So, what'd you do after Bastogne?
They took us out of there and we went back to a holding ground in the back and got replacements and so forth and rebuilt our outfit, took basic training all over again, and went out of there. When we left there, we went to Remagen Bridgehead next time. The 9th Armored Division was one that captured the Remagen Bridge.
Were you there for that?
I was there, but it wasn't B Company, and C Company is one that captured it. And we'd pulled up there, and they told us when we got to Remagen that they'd have 2 weeks stopover, rest period. We'd been pushing right along. And they said it'd take the engineers 2 weeks to build bridges across there. Well, the damn C Company got up there and captured the bridge, so we didn't get no rest at all. They just shoved us right on across.
So were you there at the fighting for the bridgehead, or were you?
Oh yeah.
What'd you do at Vermont?
I was driving half-track at that time. I hauled 95 gallons of, 95 5-gallon cans of gasoline across that bridge at about 30 miles an hour, and the lieutenant's in there with me. He said, don't you stop for nothing. He said, if anything gets on that bridge, said you run over. So that's the way I crossed it, the Remagen Bridge.
How bad was the fighting there for that bridge?
Really, it wasn't near as bad as Bastogne. Fact is, the heaviest fighting we got was dadgum planes and artillery trying to knock that bridge out.
Why didn't the Germans blow that bridge?
Why didn't they?
Yeah.
You're asking questions I don't know.
And then, why was Bastogne, the fight at Bastogne, worse than Vermont? What was the difference?
Well, there's a lot more fighting at Bastogne, shooting and so forth there. And you was closer to them there. After they captured this bridge, why, heck, the German lines was back quite a little ways from there. And they wasn't too much fighting there, except when they was just trying to blow that bridge to keep the Americans from crossing. I seen 3 airplanes come over there one night, just about dark, and they was trying to blow that bridge, and that was the prettiest fireworks you ever seen. And everybody was shooting 10 airplanes, and none of them got away either. But they had artillery guns set back, I don't know how far back, throwing artillery in there too.
With the Germans?
Yeah, trying to knock out the bridge.
Could you tell me just some incidents that happened at Vermont that you remember, what you did?
Happened where?
At Bastogne, just any particular incidents that happened that you can remember?
Oh, the dadgum just thing I can remember is the cold weather. I just about froze to death out there. We wrapped up in every dadgum thing we could get a hold of. And then they went to the civilians and asked for sheets and stuff because there's snow on the ground. Wanted them for camouflage, such as that. We wrapped up in all them we found too. But, I can tell you that maybe this is out of order, but there's one old kid there wanted me to go help him rob the post office. He told me, he says it'll be below all hell in the morning. I said, oh no. I said, that's messing with government stuff. Well, he was right. It was below all hell the next morning. It wouldn't make any difference. But,
So, from a migrant, where'd you go?
well, we ended up on the Czech border over South Germany. You know where that is?
I know the area, basically.
Well, that's where we ended up. But after we got away from the Romegan bridgehead, we had everything practically our own way then. There wasn't too much fighting. Germans is giving up just about as fast as you get to them.
Yeah. What was the reaction of the Belgian people to the Americans?
Oh, they was tickled to see us. It practically wasn't anything too good for us.
What about the reaction of the German people to the American soldiers?
Well, I'll tell you what, they kind of figured the spoils belonged to the victory. And that's the way they took it. Of course, now it was against the regulation to fraternize with German women at that time, but that didn't keep the American soldiers from fraternizing. So.
And where were you when the war ended?
It was right on the Czech border.
And what was your reaction on VE Day, what to do?
Well, I was kind of thinking about coming home, but I knew that I didn't have enough points to leave, so I was wondering what I was going to do. And let's see, I think they had to have 85 points, and I had 81 or 82. And so they stuck me in the Army of Occupation for a couple of months, and then I got to come home. They lowered the point system to 80, and I got to come home.
Now, how do you get a point? How does that point system work?
Well, the amount of months you got in there, you got so many points per month or year, and you got your age counted and your medals counted and all that stuff, kind of just added up points. If you was married, you got so many points for having a wife at home. Had kids, you got so many points for them. And a lot of the boys was over there 6 months or less. Why, they had a wife, family home. They had more points than we did. Have been there for years.
So, what'd you do in the Army of Occupation?
Just kind of guarded the line there to keep the Germans from moving backward and forth.
What, they're on the Czech border?
Yeah. Keep the Czech people from coming across there. And, we had to feed them people, or they had to be fed, you know. And whenever they'd come across there, well, somebody had to take care of them. So we was out there on the lines guarding them to keep people from slipping through and coming across.
And the boat trip back,
Pleasant.
what ship did you come back on?
LST. It was a smaller ship than the Queen Mary. We was 3.5 days going over and was 7.5 days coming back.
And you say you passed the Statue of Liberty coming back?
No, going over.
Going over.
We went out, we seen the Statue of Liberty.
But you didn't see it coming back then?
Yeah, you can see it at a distance, but we come into New York Harbor, and the goddamn longshoreman was on a strike, and we had to go to Boston to get unloaded. we told them if they'd give us some machine guns and rifles, we'd go ahead and unload them, longshoremen's or otherwise. But they had guards on the boat keeping us from getting off.
So what'd you do after the war?
What I do, I came home and I got me a job working for the State Highway Department, and I worked there. I went to work 45. I got married in 47. Worked for the Highway Department at 49, then moved to the farm. I've been farming and ranching ever since, mostly ranching.
Mm-hmm. Well, anything else about the war you can think of that we didn't talk about?
Well, not that I want to tell in the public. So, it's about the way it goes.
Let me.
Up there at Bastogne, and their airborne boys, they was pretty rough customers. They taught us quite a few things about taking care of the Germans and so forth. We had lots of experience there. I wouldn't sell my experience for $50,000, but I wouldn't want to go back and get it again. So.
When did you first see the Germans?
Huh?
When did you first see the Germans? What was your reaction when you first saw them?
Well, I think the first German I seen was in Belgium. And I don't know, our reaction, I guess, was kind of protect ourselves or make sure that they didn't shoot us first or something like that.
Well, any other, tell me some of those incidents you said that.
Huh?
Some of those incidents you said that weren't for the public. What are they?
Well, we was up there at Bastogne, and I and a couple of these airborne boys was out there on the crossroads, kind of a T-shaped road from the garden. I was in a foxhole over on one side of the rifle, and then two over here was there with a machine gun. And they told me, said, come on over. I said, no, I said, I'm going to stay over here. I said, well, we come over there. So I guess they just got out of the foxhole and come across the road. I guess they did. Why, we sat there, talked, chatted, and the little company was appreciated, you know. Very soon we seen the Germans coming up to that damn road. And little boys, they was quite a little ways from the machine gun, and one of them said to me, he said, now, when I say fire, you just stick your gun up over the bank, said, pull the trigger toward them, said, see how many shots you can pull off down towards them Germans. He said, don't make any difference whether you hit them or not. I said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to get behind that machine gun. I said, okay, so I stuck the gun up over the bank. He said, start shooting, and I started shooting. Well, the Germans all hit the ground. He ran over with this dadgum machine gun, and he opened up with one with that machine gun, and he got all of them right there. So just what there was. Then we decided who'd go search them, see what they had on them. And I said, well, I need a gun. I said, I'll go search them. Okay, so I went down there and I checked them over for pistols, and I couldn't find no pistols on them. So I went back, and one of these here boys in the airborne, he said, do you have any money on them? I said, hell, I didn't look for money. I said, I'd look for German pistols. He said, well, you stupid son of a bitch, we throw them away all the time. Money is what you need. So he went down and searched them. I never get no money out of them. He did. Another time we captured a whole bunch of Germans, and I had seen one that had a nice big old gold watch on his arm. I wanted it. I don't know whether I should mention names or not, but we had an Indian for sergeant. And I was going to get that watch. And I told the German, I said, give me that watch. No, he said, my mama give me, my mama give me. I said, come on, give me the watch. I was kind of new at the game, you know. No, my mama give me. This sergeant named Indian, He walks up there and he said, Knabe, you having trouble? And I said, yeah. He said, want that watch? His name was Ben. I ain't gonna tell you his last name. He said, let me show you how to get that. He's carrying his rifle like that, you know. He walked up to that man. He said, give me that watch. The German said, no, my mama gave me, my mama gave me. And the old boy just took the gun like that and slapped him right up there and he hit the ground. He said, you son of a bitch, you never had a mama. Give me that watch. And that German was taking it off when he come up. That there Ben, he just stuck it in his pocket and said, thanks, Knabe. And went right on. So we had some excitement.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we have a good interview.
Oh, okay, I'll get on over to nursing home.
Okay. I need to get your autograph, though.
Oh, you want me to sign that?